And what's going on, folks? That's the intro here. This is, what normally is the Pick'em show, but this is actually going to be the Knuckleheads version of the Pigskin Preview with a lot of the same family. That's why you see the same logo up here. And since the off season's starting, in years past, we always worried about not having enough news in the off season. And the way this one is starting, that is not going to be a problem, just like it wasn't last year. And we talked a little bit about how McDaniels, leaving the Colts was kind of a, we all had our opinions on it. But after Tuesday's show, we kind of had some more insight into it, which I thought was valuable and could be used. So we're going to start with that just very quickly. We have Shane McGowan, Mark Hirsch, and Blaine Thompson, the whole crew here for the Knuckleheads Pigskin group. And I'll just go to you, Shane. One thing we left off was, what does it mean for the Colts? Like, perspectively, because I think we focused more on just, was it a bad business move or not for McDaniel. So welcome, Shane. Why don't we go to you, and then we'll go to Hirsch, and then Mr. Baltimore Blaine.
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure. And you know what? You're right. This is absolutely a lot of stuff is coming out as of late. Again, one other quick rumor that I had heard today was the fact that when the Chicago Bears actually were interested in McDaniels, and they had a bit of a discussion, but they had figured out that no, he wasn't really going to be jumping ship to even come close to them. So they quickly called off their talks. So somehow they seem to have gotten a little bit of wind that he was never really going to be leaving the Patriots. And that whole deal was just sweetened up by Mr. Kraft and the rest of them. And like I said, as for the Colts, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Tony Dungy so upset at what Josh McDaniels has done, and rightfully so. So, like I said, the only thing he's hoping for right now is to just stay with the Patriots, let Belichick take off, and he's going to take over the reins. But right now, this is probably the only guy I know that I don't think is going to get another look at a coaching job, head coaching job, other than the organization that he's in right now. And I think the Colts are definitely going to be having to find somebody to replace and almost throw it back into the Patriots' face when they play them. Mr. Hirsch.
Thank you, Shane, and I'm grateful to be here. I always like to join you guys for some insightful talk. And I guess I'll answer the last question first. What does this mean for the Colts? Well, it means they're going to have to find a manager, a head coach. So enough said about that. They're going to be out on the hunt. And the big question in my mind when all this was coming down was, why would he do this? And now we're hearing that Belichick's going to step down and that Josh McDaniels is the heir apparent. And the question in my mind about this is, Belichick stepping down when? I don't even know how old Bill Belichick is, but he doesn't seem to be exerting himself too much over there on the sidelines. And I know he takes an active interest in everything, but I'd be surprised if he stepped down in the next year or two, quite frankly. And I think that what we might see is that he's going to go out at the same time as Tom Brady. And I think it's questionable that he's going to step out in the next year or two if he doesn't have to. So, yeah, the things are real, it's confusing trying to figure it out. But the one thing that I'm pretty sure of is that somebody over at the Patriots whispered in Josh McDaniels' ear, "You're next." And he probably figures he's better off there than with the loser Colts. Baltimore Blaine?
Yeah, hey guys, great to be back with the core of the Pigskin group and getting to talk football here. I'm going to say, Mr. Hirsch, that Josh McDaniels, as we stated on the Tuesday show, was classless, just for the reasons that we had so many coaches that took him for his word. He burned a lot of bridges on this, and yeah, I think somebody got in his ear. I think that Kraft got in his ear and said that Belichick is going to be retiring soon, or he won't be with the organization very soon. Now, whether Belichick is going to be forced out because we have heard about the tension over the Garoppolo trade and some other things. That's another story. Maybe Bill himself has said that I'm only going to give so many more years or so much more time, and it's an agreement between all of the everybody upstairs that he won't be there for long, and that Josh McDaniels is the heir apparent. That's the only reason that I can think that he is still with this organization, passing up a sure thing with the Colts. It could be the Luck injury, whether Luck's condition is going to change, but I think that would be just a side note for making that decision. So if Mr. McDaniels is looking to further his career, he just narrowed it down to just one organization at this point, because you can't take him for his word. Again, like I was saying on the Tuesday show, it reminds me of the Jason Garrett um, maneuver where he was just bargaining for a guarantee from the Cowboys when he interviewed with the Ravens before Harbaugh was finally selected as the number 2 choice there. Mr. Rose.
Yeah, so something I want to I know Hirsch had something that he wants to maybe add on to this at the very end, but we'll get off of this subject because I know you guys are inundated with it. But on Tuesday, because Shane's going to join us for the very end of the Tuesday show, there's something to be said about he kind of really wasn't mentally ready for the Broncos job when he went around. And then I guess there's some stories about him like really not taking the pressure of losing and the problems that came with when he was with St. Louis. Last year when he interviewed, there was some weird stuff going on, and there's stories that'll start coming out, and I'm sure there'll be more out on Tuesday about him hiring a life coach and about him trying to do better at it, and about how this might be actually a little bit more of just the fact that he feels comfortable in a winning system he knows, and just kind of I don't want to be embarrassed again like I was and get cold feet. So we'll talk about that on Tuesday, and we're lucky enough to have Shane coming in at the end of the show on Tuesday. So Mr. Hirsch, why don't you add just any little part you have to that, and then you can give us a little bit of some of the coaching changes and some Packer news. Please and thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I was intending to address that, and I agree with what Baltimore Blade said, that it was a classless move. As far as if he's limited himself to just the Patriots, I don't know about that. A lot of teams have needs that they need to fill, and you never know if down the road Belichick's still plugging away and somebody else needs him. Somebody else might be interested in Josh McDaniels despite what happened. So enough said about that. But yeah, it wasn't a smooth move, that's for sure. Now about the Packers, and I know on the regular show I'm not one to want to talk too much about my home team. They, we have so many listeners and they're interested in so much more than what I would have to say about the Packers, but there's a lot going on at the Packers, and I'm not so sure it's a good thing. They fired Dom Capers, everybody knows that, and they've got a new defensive coordinator in there. I think his first name is Mike Pettin, and a new offensive coordinator, Joe Philbin, who I believe was the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins and was a previous offensive coordinator for the Packers. So more is going to be revealed about that. But I think that the big news on the Packers front is that Aaron Rodgers is not a happy camper. His quarterback coach was not renewed. He was let go, and nobody even talked to Aaron about it. I think that he feels that the Packers aren't making the right moves to get into contention player-wise, and that he wants some more rings. So he was talking, maybe he's not going to finish out his career as the Packers. Maybe he's going to try to go somewhere else where he can get what he wants. He wants Super Bowl rings, and he maybe is thinking he's not going to get them there. Plus, he's not happy that they let go of his quarterback coach without even telling him about it until it was a done deal. The other issue over at the Packers is up in the administration. when Ted Thompson retired, at least it appeared to me, I thought that a shoo-in for the job was Ron Wolf's son, Elliot Wolf. And he didn't get the job. They gave it to some guy that I never even heard of, Gutekunst, and offered Elliot Wolf assistant general manager position, which he turned down with the Packers and then went to the Cleveland Browns and took the same position, assistant general manager. What that tells me is that Elliot Wolf also thought it was his turn. He's been with the Packers for a long time, working his way up the ranks of the scouting and all that kind of stuff. So he's gone, and he's went to Cleveland, which somebody I was talking to says, what's he trying to punish himself? But I don't know. So, yeah, that's it for the Packers. More is going to be revealed on that. I'm not happy about some of this stuff, especially Elliot Wolf taking off and Aaron Rodgers not being happy. Anything to say about this, Shane?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I mean, first off, if Aaron Rodgers is being kept out of the loop when it comes to his coaching, quarterback coaches, and people like that, you're right. That's going to put a real bitter taste in your mouth. And that is not something you want your franchise quarterback to have in any way at all. You do not want to start having people and being disgruntled already before, you start making draft picks and everything like that. So I got a feeling that some more things are going to be happening within the next few weeks with the whole upper management of Green Bay. They're almost falling like how Chicago was. I mean, Chicago's drafting quarterbacks, but yet the head coach does know nothing about it. So I think it's going to be an interesting scenario in the next little bit. But Aaron Rodgers is definitely a vocal man. So if he's not happy, he's going to make some waves out there, and I think they need to address it, because if he doesn't play a decent season next year, he's got something to say. Well, listen, I don't have the right coaches in place. Now there's going to be a lot of controversy again. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting time in the next little bit. That's for sure. Mr. Chris.
So I want to quickly say that we're going to talk a lot about. I have some thoughts about Thompson and McCarthy, and definitely we're going to get into, especially on this side of the show, which is going to be the Knuckleheads part of the Pigskin. We're going to have a couple of new shows. We're going to get a lot into our Homer stuff, maybe even a couple of specialized shows. But I have a lot to say. Just like I am going to hammer my team for hiring what I think is one of the worst offensive coordinator decisions you could ever make. So stay tuned for that. But talking about Ted Thompson and the changeover, one of the things he has done really successfully for a very long time is draft quarterbacks. Even when they've had the best run of 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that a team could ever have, that's not going to be reproduced ever, I don't think. And they got to trade off the Brunels, the Hasselbecks, all the other guys. They got a bunch of money for Flynn, and they've done really well with that. And that's been something that Belichick has been done well with as well. So I think it's a good transition to the fact that let's talk about a situation that we all just watched. I mean, I'm talking about the idea of the Packers always, even though they have a quarterback situation set, always looking for good quarterbacks and then building them, and when they don't need them, moving them out and getting tons of draft picks for them. And there's only a couple of teams in the league that do that, which is the Packs and the Packs and the Pats. If that makes sense. So going to that, in this case, we've seen, and in the NFC Championship game, we saw how important it was. And shout out to Dina, who's going to be one of the people listening to this show, how she's been preaching, Pittsburgh, get a backup quarterback. You probably would have got to another couple of Super Bowls, or at least won some more games. You had 2 backup quarterbacks in the NFC Championship game, and one just went crazy and won the Super Bowl. So now with Foles, you have a guy that has 1 year left on his contract. He's cheap. You have what was going to be the MVP on the as the starter for that team, and he's coming back. His rehab's looking good. So what do? Do you keep him on? But because right now his value, like with a Cleveland or a Jets, you could give Foles away for, the house of someone's draft. What do you guys think? So I think it's a great segue between what Ted Thompson did in his career throughout that whole career. So why don't we start, since we skipped you on the last news, Blaine? What do you think they should do with Foles?
It's hard to say because, as you said, he's you could get a lot for him. But on the other hand, you want to make sure that Carson Wentz is recovered from his injury and that you have a quality backup in place in case it happens again. I would say that the Eagles will start the season with Foles as the backup and then look to move him during the season. Sort of like what happened with Garoppolo and the Pats. You can get a quality backup late in the season. There's no way of anticipating injuries. So it's a gamble. It's a gamble, but then, you're going to have teams that are desperate enough to give you what you want, even though Foles will be a free agent after the 2018 season. You can still get a good sum for him. So yeah, it's a gamble that you're throwing the dice, and it'll be interesting to see which way Philly goes on this.
Well, Blaine, Mark Hirsch here. I don't think it's a smart move for them to even keep Foles. I mean, it's a smart move for the Eagles, but what are you going to do with a disgruntled player? I mean, Foles is not a backup anymore. He's a starting caliber quarterback. He won the Super Bowl. So, first of all, the question is Foles or Wentz? Who are they going to go with? And I think probably they're going to want to go with Wentz, but how is Foles going to feel if he's sitting there for a year as a backup after he won the Super Bowl? That's just ridiculous. And yeah, I suppose the Eagles can keep him. He's under contract. He's stuck with them. But if they go with Wentz, he's going to be riding the planks. He's never going to be happy. So, I think it's a bad situation, to tell you the truth. And although it's important to have a good backup, you have to have, the smart thing to do is to get somebody that, like Mahomes or like Aaron Rodgers was to Brett Favre, somebody that can start out in a learning role and then bring them in at the right time when they're ready. That's the success formula, not having two Super Bowl caliber quarterbacks on the roster. Enough said. Shane.
Well, actually, I'm going to jump in here, Mr. Hirsch. I'm going to just say that we don't know that Foles is going to be disgruntled. Maybe he's a team player, one of these team guys who will honor the fact that he signed up as a backup. He knew what he was getting into. He signed that contract for the multiple years that he did. And I know that, he's already made his mark as a Super Bowl winning, that he will get his payday within the next couple of years. So I'm sure that they're going to go with Wentz. Carson Wentz is what got him there in the first place. Carson Wentz is the younger player. He's also they invested more in Carson Wentz. So Foles will get paid, but I don't see this disgruntled player. That's the only thing that I want to push back on is I don't really know if he's going to be a disgruntled player. And again, if they move him during the season and tell him that they're going to move him during the season, guarantee that, then he will probably be fine with that.
Well, then
Mr.
he's
Rose.
a much more spiritual man than I am. Shane's next,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no, I just want to say something real quick. I want to set Shane up with a couple of topics, but I just want to say that's something we're going to be talking about all off season. Is basically Philly's in a great situation just if they do it right, right? So it's about business sense and about football sense, and this is one of those weird years where you're going to see, what they decide is really what's going to make the difference. So talking about that, horrible football in my mind as far as what they did, firing a great GM and the whole Kirk Cousins situation, and them basically, doing the double franchise tag and then picking up Alex Smith for more than what they were willing to guarantee Kirk Cousins for, which is the only sticking situation. I don't know what's going on with that, but Shane, why don't you talk about that? I know we've kind of taking over for a little bit. Why don't you give us a good 4 or 5 minutes on what you think about that? What you think about maybe the contract with Garoppolo? Sorry, folks, it's going to be a short show. The rest of our shows are going to be long. We will touch on these topics again, but since we cut off Coach Shane, why don't you let us know what's going on with that? And we'll close out with Blaine and Mr. Hirsch talking about the same subjects.
Well, you know what? Okay, let's go back to, like we said, with Cousins and Washington. I mean, for what, a couple of years now, he's had the franchise tag on him, and you have to stop and think, why? Why are you always doing this? Why are you not signing him to that long-term contract? Even like what Garoppolo got, 5 years, something like this. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. I mean, he's made a great money in these years. Don't get me wrong. But really, this almost shows the lack of trust and the respect that they have for Cousins to take this team far into a playoff type of contender. But again, I don't care what quarterback you get there. If you don't have the supporting cast around you, you're no good. You're just an average guy. And this is what the problem is. So even with Alex Smith coming in, who do you have for receivers? Who do you got protecting him in the O-line? Is that defense going to be strong enough to keep teams off the scoreboard as well? So there's going to be a lot of things that got to get taken care of. No question about that come draft time. Cousins, I mean, he's going to go somewhere that he needs to go, and he's going to be appreciated, I think, wherever he goes. He's going to do something, and I guarantee you he's going to be definitely looking for a team where he can play against Washington and light it up on them. Going to Garoppolo now on that contract, I mean, San Fran found their guy. They found the guy that they think is going to lead them, just like the Montanas and the Young and everybody like this. So they're happy there, and he's happy with the system. He's happy with the coaching staff. There's no question about that. Now it's about getting this team to play consistent football next season, to play all together as a team, offensive, defense, special teams. And I do think they're going to make some waves. There's no question about it. They still got draft picks that they're going to be able to get. Who knows what's going to happen when they want to start picking up with free trade coming up. So it's going to be an interesting San Francisco team. I do think, though, that you're going to have to be aware of them. I think they're going to shock some teams next year. So it's going to be very, very good. My biggest thing is when we still, if I had to pick of where Cousins is going to go, I'm going to say Denver. Denver, I think he's going to go to. I don't think he's going to go to the Jets like I first kind of figured, but I do think he's going to go to Denver. So I'm going to pass this one on to Mr. Hirsch now. What is your take on this, sir?
Well, thank you, Shane. I agree with everything you said. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Is no quarterback is going to shine if he doesn't have a supporting cast. This is a team sport, and there's 11 men on the team, and you need them all. I agree with you. I think that it would be a good fit for Cousins to go to Denver. I don't know why he would want to go to the Jets. I think that Denver at least has something going. They've got a great defense. I think it's a good place for him. As far as Garoppolo, yeah, I agree with you on that as well. You're taking all the air out of my room here because there's nothing left to say.
Sorry.
No, that's okay because there's only so much to say about this, and it is what it is. Now, as far as the Redskins picking Alex Smith over Cousins, that doesn't make sense to me. And everybody knows that I've never been a fan of Alex Smith, but he just never, seems to push through. And, I said it on the Tuesday night show. If they want to win a Super Bowl, they got the wrong guy. If they want to get into the playoffs and lose the first game, go with Alex Smith because that guy doesn't have any pizzazz, and I don't think he's going to do much for him. Blaine.
Okay, so I'm going to say the first move. Well, first of all, I want to say that Kirk Cousins is going to go obviously to the team that pays him the best contract between those two teams. It is going to be between those two teams, I think, the Jets or Denver. I'm leaning towards Denver because I think they're more ready to win. They just need a couple of pieces, but it also has to do with who has the most cap room and who can afford them. That move that Washington made by signing Alex Smith or trading for Alex Smith and then letting Cousins go, at first I thought I was puzzled by. And then when you look into what happened with Garoppolo's contract now, these contracts are just going to keep going up, guys. I mean, you got Drew Brees, you got him. It's all about timing, and it's all about who's up next. Now, yeah, Garoppolo's only played in 7 professional or NFL games. He's undefeated in those 7 games. But does that give does that give justification for being awarded all this money? Is he worth all of this money? Well, not worth all this money, but has he earned it? Well, it's about future earnings. It's about who comes up next in the franchise quarterback category. You got a ton of quarterbacks that are coming up for renewal, including Aaron Rodgers, who, as we stated earlier, may not be happy. So, what happens when his contract comes up in the next 2 years? Does he decide to jettison from Green Bay and go somewhere where he feels like he has a better chance of winning if he's not happy with what's being built around him? That's a possibility. You've got Russell Wilson up for a contract. All these guys are going to get paid. That price is going to escalate. Now you have DC, who has Alex Smith, who's cheaper than what Kirk Cousins is going to sign for in free agency, or if he has stayed at Washington. Now Washington can build a team around him because that's what they have to do because of their salary cap. So I think it turns out that was a smart move by Washington. Mr. Hirsch, or is that who's up next?
Yeah, I didn't say this before, but I'm going to say it now. I'm getting in early. I think it was a real smart move to get Garoppolo in there. I think that San Francisco 49ers are going to be on the rise, and I think it's going to be between them and the LA Rams for the top of the division in the NFC West. Now, as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, I think it depends on what kind of a year he has next year, or I should say the Packers have next year. If the Packers get deep into the playoffs or even to the Super Bowl, I don't think they're going to have a problem re-signing Aaron Rodgers.
Chris? Turn your mic on.
Yeah, sorry about the mute. I can cut that out. So I think everything that you guys say is correct. Once again, it's all about getting it right. We're going to talk about this on the shows coming up. I think everyone made a great point. I just want to add one thing in which we're going to talk about going forward is I think that our buddy Cousins has a lot more markets than just the Jets and Denver. I think there's a lot of teams that think that I just need one quarterback and that's all we need, especially maybe some playoff teams like Buffalo, some other places, and places with coaching changes love to want to make that mark with that new quarterback because that's what they're going to have to lay their hat on. That's what they're going to have to roll with. I think the problem that a lot of people did have, including McDaniels, was that I think a GM and a coaching change should be made together. And maybe one of the stories we're going to have come out is that McDaniels and that GM and that owner, who's also bleep, bleep, bleep explorative, may have chased him away and his personality. So, folks, we're going to have tons of shows. They're not all going to be 30 minutes. We're launching a variety of shows with some of your favorite people coming up. This next season, it's actually going to come up in the next couple of weeks. You're going to see a lot of push, and you're going to see us on our Mancini stuff, pushing this stuff out. So thank you for being here on YouTube. We're going to launch a new YouTube station. So anyone that's here listening to us, we're going to have all the information for you on the Mancini stuff, as well as here on the YouTube in the description. We love you. We miss you. And off season, there is no off season NFL. Plus, we're going to have a bunch of other sports. So love you. Thank you. Thank you to my court guys, and we'll see you soon.